What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Talking with Beers, episode 206, the weekly news. Now, today's episode, we're going to talk about FIFA because it made changes ahead of the 2026 World Cup. Plus, Tyler Reddick makes history this past weekend in NASCAR. The WBC starts this week, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, let's head to the NHL. So we are back, weekly episodes, hopefully at least one episode a week. Olympics are over. We talked about that for a good amount of time on both the social medias and on the channels on recording. So that was a lot of fun, a lot of good tournament stuff to talk about there. But now we're back into normal talk. So normal college sports, baseball is starting up, so talk about that. Off season for football, NHL trade deadline is coming up, so I'm going to talk about that as well. So there's a lot to talk about. It might only come out in one full episode just for time constraints with my personal life stuff, but we are going to try and get back into at least one episode per week. So this episode, all about every little thing that we usually do with the weekly sports. So right back into the normal swing of things. Starting off this one in the NHL, Anaheim's Joel Quenneville becomes the second coach ever to reach 1,000 wins in his coaching career. Paul Maurice actually is right behind him, though, 945. So he will probably hit that before he retires. But congrats to Joel Quenneville on that achievement. Connor McDavid hit the 100-point mark not that long ago, right after the All-Star break. For the 9th time in his career, he's the 3rd player ever to do this, 100 points in 9+ seasons, joining Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux. Dallas Stars announced that they are sending Tyler Seguin to the LTIR and expect him to not return at all this season. So that will clear up space for the trade deadline. But it's really honestly tough news because Seguin and the Stars thought he'd be able to return at least later on in the regular season, if not the postseason. But unfortunately, he will be missing the whole year due to that ACL tear and surgery that he had to go under. LA Kings announced that they have fired Jim Hiller, their head coach, after the 8-1 loss to Edmonton. It sounds like DJ Smith will be the interim head coach for the rest of the season, though. And Matt Green, who is in the top in the front office, will be added to the assistant coaching staff for the team. So I'm not too sure where the Kings go from here. I still expect them to make playoffs. I expect them to make some sort of trade at the deadline as well. They just picked up Panarin, which was a sweet spot in the trade deadline news, and that was before the All-Star break. Or the Winter Olympic break, excuse me. So I don't really know where they go from here. I could see them picking up another guy or two, but I really don't know if the Kings had the space for it. That's going to be the big thing. Can they get a team to retain some contract for that asset that's coming over? Trade deadline has already kind of started. I mean, we already talked about Panarin going over to the Kings a little bit. Edmonton gets Connor Murphy, defenseman from Chicago. Only 50% of his contract's coming over from the Windy City in exchange for a 2028 second-round pick. Now, I don't think this is a bad pickup for Edmonton. Defensively, they're one of the worst teams in the nation, 4th worst in the league, and one of the top scoring teams. I think they're 2nd in the league in scoring, but you can't score 5-6 goals every game. You got to expect some defense, got to expect some goaltending from Edmonton. Hopefully Connor Murphy, in the sake of Edmonton's point of view, is going to help them out with that. I don't know if they're going to go after a new goalie. I think Skinner was not really the right person for them, but he's looking great in Pittsburgh. Tristan Jarry is not looking great over here in Edmonton. So I don't really know where they go from here. They don't have a lot of space, so getting 50% off of that contract is huge for them. But it's going to be tough to see what Edmonton does coming on Friday, but they still got some time to try and figure out what they want to do with that. And mentioning trade deadline, that is on Friday. So a lot of teams are going to look a lot different between now and the weekend. We're really going to see who's going to go into a playoff push and who's going to sit back and wait for the next season, if not further. A couple names to note here. I got 8 names that are being circling around for trade bait. Vincent Trocheck from the Rangers. I think this is a huge number 1 guy in the market. I think Minnesota would be a great spot for him. Billy G loved him, brought him over to the Olympics. They need that centerman role a little bit more for depth. I think Trocheck, what he did at the Olympics, is going to be a great asset for Minnesota. So I think Minnesota would love to have him. Now, will it be in the cards to make that trade happen? I think Billy G will try his best. But if I had to put money on it, I think Minnesota will get Vinny Trocheck at the deadline. Nazem Kadri from Calgary. A lot of people say Colorado. Some are saying Dallas. Some are saying elsewhere. I think he's definitely on the move, though, on Friday. Jordan Kyrou from St. Louis. Another guy that I think is really underrated. Guy that I think that a team would be very happy to have. So Jordan Kyrou from St. Louis. I don't think this is going to be a pickup that's going to be like a trial or rental for the season. I think they're going to have him long term. So expect a pretty nice return for St. Louis if they do get rid of Kyrou. But I think he's going to be a pretty nice pickup if somebody does get him at the deadline. Elias Pettersson for Vancouver. The only bad thing is the contract, but Pettersson could help out a team. Ryan O'Reilly, Nashville. Older veteran guy, has won the cup. Centerman, so he could be a good depth guy. I'm not too sure where he would fit, but it could be somewhere that needs that centerman line role. Maybe a team like Minnesota, if they can't get Vinny, maybe they go after Ryan O'Reilly. Jesper Wallstedt from Minnesota. Now, this is surprising. I see a lot of people talking about Wallstedt maybe on the move. I could see him as being a piece for a team that's going to lose a big name, get a big goalie in return. But in my opinion, I would not trade Wallstedt. I think you need a 1-2 when it comes to goalies. I think Wallstedt's a great number 2 right now with him being young. And then you could pay the future for him being the number 1 guy in Minnesota. So I would not trade him, but people are circling his name as moving at the deadline here. 2 more, Mackenzie Weegar from Calgary. Big defenseman. Calgary's done for the year, so I think Weegar would be a good pickup for a team. And the last one, St. Louis, is Robert Thomas. Again, kind of like Kyrou, not talked about a lot, but I think he could be a really nice second or third line guy on a good team, maybe on a playoff push here. So Robert Thomas, I think, could be on the move as well. So St. Louis, I think, could be big buyer or big seller, at the deadline. But I could see a pretty nice haul coming back for the guys that they're going to lose. All right, let's head to the world of FIFA. We'll start off with Brazilian player from Real Madrid, Rodrigo. He suffered an ACL tear this past weekend. He will miss the rest of the season for his team. Plus, he'll miss the World Cup for Brazil. So if he was going to be a top player for Brazil, that is no more. So that's tough news for Rodrigo. And speaking of the World Cup, we are 100 days away from the start of the World Cup, where we have Mexico versus South Africa in the World Cup opener, which was also the World Cup opener in 2010. So a nice little rematch there between those two squads. I'm very excited. Unfortunately, I do not know if I will be able to go to these games based off of ticket prices that are going around for the lucky fans that have been able to be picked to buy tickets. I don't know how anyone's going to afford it outside of corporate seats and businesses. So if you guys get to the World Cup, congrats, amazing, awesome, what an experience. But I don't know, for me personally, it's going to happen anymore, but we got 100 days out, so it's going to be a little while, but yet it's going to be very fast and very quick. So it's just right around the corner from that starting. Speaking of World Cup still, though, we're going to talk about some rule changes and a potential team dropping out. So I hate politics and talking about politics, but when politics comes into sports and affects sports, like how IIHF has with hockey, Belarus, and Russia, we got to talk about Iran now. So Iran is talking about potentially withdrawing their name from the 2026 World Cup, which, all fairness to them, I don't really blame them at this point. But if that were to happen, what would happen to their spot? It sounds like the UAE would be able to take that over and fill in their spot inside the group stages and take over their schedule. So this could benefit the UAE. But Iran, if they choose not to make the World Cup, again, would not blame them at all. But it would be interesting to see what would happen after the fact. And also, with this, whatever you want to call it, going on in the Middle East, and even down low in the southern border of Mexico with their cartel and civil war kind of thing going on right now. I don't really know what to call it. Again, don't want to talk about politics. The safety of the World Cup is definitely got to be on the radar of FIFA. So I know Canada has the venues and the places that they could probably host a World Cup. I don't think they're going to go to that. I still think they're going to try and do all 3 nations, but you definitely got to be worried if you're FIFA and the safety of the players, the nations, the fans, and the countries hosting it. So I definitely think there's going to be a lot of discussion between that. And if Iran makes it or not, there's definitely going to be a lot of stuff talking about that. So keep your eye out on that news. I'm not too sure what to think about it, but again, don't want to talk about politics on the channel. Then we head to the International Football Association Board rules changes ahead of the 2026 World Cup. We got 4 new big changes to this. We're going to start off with the throw-ins and goal kicks, so time wasting. If either take a deliberate long time, quote unquote long time of more than 5 seconds that the ref will be granted, the ref can award the possession to the other team, which I'm 100% fine with. Don't really mind that. I don't think we're going to see it very often, if at all. It might be the kind of thing we'll probably see it like at stoppage time when a team's up by 2 maybe or something like that. I could see something like that. Sub time limit, which I actually really like this rule. Players must exit the field within 10 seconds of being subbed. If not, the sub will not be able to come on until stoppage time, or to the next stoppage, after at least 1 minute has been played. I actually really like this. I think it's really kind of stupid how long sometimes players come off. I know it's part of the game, especially if you're on one side and not the other when it comes to fans or players. Everybody does it, but it really does just waste a lot of time. So 10 seconds to get off the field. If you don't, that sub can't come on till the next minute plus a whistle. Injury treatments. If a injured player causes a stop and play and has to receive treatment, they must leave the field for at least 1 minute of play while play continues on. So I'm okay with this. Again, sometimes it's terrible time wasting and you could tell when players not really needs the treatment. So I'm okay with this change. I think it's a good change, and I'm curious to see how much that's going to be implemented when it comes to the actual gameplay. And the last one, VAR changes. There's going to be more things that can be reviewed that were not actually able to be reviewed in the past. Corner kicks will be reviewed. Second yellow cards that have been awarded can be reviewed since they obviously changed to a red. And the last one, wrong players receiving a card can be reviewed. So I'm actually fine with that one for sure. I mean, if you're going to book somebody, you got to book the right player. So I'm fine with that. The second yellow turned into a red. I'm fine with that being reviewed. And corner kicks, for the most part, I'm okay with it. But with all these changes, is it going to slow down the game and kind of whittle down the excitement of whatever's happening in the game at the time? I think so. I know that the 3 before that we just talked about is going to help out with the time wasting. But is this going to be an official, quote unquote, time wasting with the officials based off of VAR checks? I know they're going to add on time because they've done pretty well when it comes to that when they do VAR checks and things like that. But it's definitely something to note. It might slow down gameplay, and it might, in the long term, not be all that great. But we'll have to see what it looks like once we get to the World Cup, which, again, 100 days away from the World Cup. And last thing to talk about, U.S. men's national team. They dropped a teaser today, actually, which I'm recording this on Tuesday at 12:30. And they dropped a teaser of the new World Cup jerseys, and all they said was soon. Nike is one of the only teams or only manufacturers that really haven't announced any jerseys when it comes to World Cup teams. Some teams for like Adidas and Puma haven't announced their World Cups squad uniforms, but a lot of teams have. The US and Nike are one of them, but everybody kind of is anticipating the Waldo jersey modernized with some wavy lines instead of straight lines for the home kits, and for the away kits being navy kits with a star pattern that's kind of within the fabric and not so prominent. I'm actually really excited for both these uniforms. If I have the money, I will buy both. I love the idea of the stars and the stripes combining jerseys like that. I really like that. And I really actually did not mind the Waldo jersey when it first came out. So seeing a modernized version of that for this upcoming World Cup, very excited to see that. So keep an eye out on that when it comes to the U.S. dropping their new uniforms. Plus, that means Nike probably will drop their new uniforms. So teams like Brazil, England, France, they might get new uniforms very quickly and release those. So keep an eye out on that. And the last thing from the U.S. men's national team, they do have 2 friendlies set this month. We'll talk about them later in the month, but to keep them on the radar, March 28th is against Belgium and March 31st is against Portugal. After that, it's it. I mean, you got 2 more games to the World Cup, which is the send-off game. So you'll see the World Cup squads play against Senegal and Germany in friendlies, and then boom, right into the World Cup in Los Angeles and Seattle for the U.S. team. So this is really the last hurrah for some of these bubble players to make that World Cup squad roster. I really do not expect Pochettino to have similar lineups for the 28th and the 31st. I would expect him to have different lineups, different combinations, some players that are on that bubble, getting them the opportunity over maybe a couple guys that we already know are going to be on the team, like a Pulisic, like a Matt Freese. Maybe you see Matt Turner in net for one of those ones. Give him a chance to kind of prove. Or I could see Pochettino do the total opposite. Just turn this into an early World Cup squad. This is what Game 1 is going to look like at the group stage of the World Cup. Use it for the next 4 games, because then you have 4 tune-up games and get some really good squads that could help you out into figuring out how to adjust to the good team. So excited about these, optimistic about these, and I think there's a lot of expectation for the U.S. to do at least solid, if not win a couple of these games. So keep those on note, though. March 28th and 31st, we'll have 2 games this friendly for the U.S. men's national team. All right, let's head to the world of racing. This past weekend, they were at the Circuits of Americas. That was NASCAR, obviously. Tyler Reddick won the first 2 races of the season. He won the third, which is the first NASCAR driver ever to win the first 3 races of a season. So Tyler Reddick just sweeping it right now. I mean, I don't know what's going to slow him down, to be honest. He looks great right now. So the standings right now for NASCAR, number 1, Reddick; 2, Wallace; 3, Elliott; 4, Blaney; 5, Van Gisberg; 6, Logano; 7, Suarez; 8, Allmendinger; 9, McDowell; 10, Hosever; 11, Buscher; 12, Keselowski; 13, Byron; 14, Smith; 15, Larson; 16, Priest. And that is actually the cutoff of the playoffs if the playoffs were to start today. Obviously, it's only been 3 races, but the ones that are just on the outside: 17 is Gibbs; 18, Gragson; 19, Ty Dillon; and 20, Chastain. So again, the playoffs did change. No automatic bids based off of wins. You got to be above or 16 or better when it comes to point accumulated over the whole season. Last thing to talk about from racing, Formula 1 starts back up this weekend. They ran out Australia Grand Prix. Unfortunately for US viewers, you can only watch this on Apple TV. Again, I think we talked about this when they first announced the deal. Not a good move, in my opinion, for US viewers and fans of Formula 1. I don't think a lot of people have Apple TV as a whole. I don't think really Apple TV is a big enough market for casuals to go out and get. I don't think I'm going to be purchasing it. I had Apple TV for a little bit for a couple shows, and then once those were over, there wasn't much more that I really wanted on that station or on that subscription. So I don't know if Formula 1 is going to be as big because of this when it comes to US viewers, obviously. But regardless, I'm going to try and stay up to date. I'm going to watch all the highlights. I'm going to try to give you guys all the news about Formula 1, but that is back this weekend at Australia Grand Prix. All right, let's head to college sports. We're going to bunch them all up together and just go through it quickly. Hockey tournaments start this weekend for some squads. We'll talk about the first 2 seeds of each tournament. The only one that has not been finalized yet is the Big Ten. They do have another week of games, and seeding has not been finalized for that. But for the Atlantic, number 1 is Bentley, number 2 is Sacred Heart. For the CCHA, it's number 1 Minnesota State, and number 2 St. Thomas. For the ECHC, that's number 1 Quinnipiac, and number 2 Dartmouth. For the Hockey East, you got number 1 Providence, and then number 2 is actually officially not done yet. Hockey East will not start tournaments this upcoming weekend. It will be the following weekend, so that is still up for grabs. But Providence did secure the number 1 spot. And lastly, the NCHC, number 1 is North Dakota, number 2 is Denver. Unfortunately, my boys, Arizona State, did not make the tournament. There was 8 spots out of 9 teams in the conference. ASU was a top seed. I think they were 2nd or 3rd last year. Ended up making it to like whatever their Frozen Four is over in Minnesota. Ended up missing the tournament as a whole. Really not a great season for Arizona State's. Injuries did not help, but the depth was not there compared to last year. But North Dakota and Denver take the 1 and 2 seeds for the NCHC. Now let's head to softball rankings. No score updates for baseball or softball, just rankings this week. We'll get back into it next week. Number 1, Tennessee, and number 2, Texas Tech. They stay put there at 1 and 2. Texas also stays put at 3. Oklahoma gets +1 to 4. Nebraska drops 1 to 5. Alabama gets +1 to 6. UCLA gets +2 to 7. Florida drops 2 to 8. Arkansas drops 1 to 9. Florida State stays put at 10. Virginia Tech gets a +1 to 11. Georgia and Oklahoma State actually tie at the 12 spot. Obviously, nobody at 13. Arizona and Texas A&M stay put at 14-15. LSU gets +1 to 16. Mississippi State gets +2 to 17. Oregon drops 1 to 18. Stanford drops 6 to 19. Virginia gets a +1 to 20. ASU gets a +2 to 21. Washington gets a +2 to 22. GCU gets a +2 to 23. South Carolina drops 2 to 24, and Duke drops 5 to 25. Other receiving votes, the top 5 were UCF at 33, Penn State at 18, Clemson at 17, North Carolina at 12, Texas State at 11. And for baseball rankings, number 1 through number 8 did not change at all. So it's UCLA at 1, LSU at 2, Texas at 3, Mississippi State at 4, Georgia Tech at 5, Arkansas at 6, Auburn at 7, North Carolina at 8. Florida gets +1 to 9, Southern Miss gets +2 to 10, Georgia State split at 11, Oklahoma gets +1 to 12, North Carolina State gets +1 to 13, Clemson gets a +1 to 14, Wake Forest gets +1 to 15, Coastal Carolina drops 7 to 16, TCU gets +1 to 17, Oregon State gets +1 to 18, Tennessee gets +1 to 19, Florida State gets +1 to 20, Kentucky gets +1 to 21, A&M gets a +1 to 22, West Virginia gets +1 to 23, Miami drops 7 to 24, and UTSA goes from unranked to 25. The only dropout from last week was Ole Miss from the 25 spot. All right, let's head to the cleanup. Not a lot to talk about, but Atlanta's DH, Jurickson Profar, will be facing a potential 162-game suspension for a second violation of PEDs. It sounds like the MLBPA will be filing a grievance against it. I don't think he's going to win that. I think Profar's season is over, maybe even potentially career is over, which is tough news for him, especially coming off that season with San Diego. Ever since he signed that contract with Atlanta, really has not been a good situation for Profar. So we'll see what happens there, but not looking good for him. WBC starts this upcoming weekend. Games actually start tomorrow, I believe, which is Wednesday. US don't start till Friday, though. But they announced their starters for the group play. So Logan will get Brazil. Tarek Skubal will get Great Britain. Paul Skeens will get Mexico. And Nolan McLean will get Italy. Now, talking about Skubal, that's the big topic right now. He actually will only pitch in that one game against Great Britain and will only be limited to 55 pitches. He will be headed back to Florida to play in spring training for the rest of the tournament of the WBC with the Detroit Tigers. So, the big conversation is, do you even need Skubal at this point? I know he's one of the best pitchers in the league. He won the Cy Young last year for the AL, but him being in a contract year, being in one year left on the contract, him wanting a lot of money, it definitely has something to do with definitely not wanting to get injured, but at this point, I don't think you really need him. I mean, I know Tarek Skubal is one of the best guys out there. I think the offensive firepower for the U.S. is going to propel this team. As long as they get solid pitching, I don't think they need anything crazy from them. So I don't think you need Skubal. I mean, thanks for showing up, but if you're not going to be here for the whole squad and for the whole tournament, I'd rather give your spot to somebody else. So those are the starters, though. Regardless, Skubal will be there for only 55 pitches max against Great Britain, which I'd rather use. If you're going to use anybody, use them against Mexico, somebody who's going to be a little bit more, I guess, scary of a team, if that's a way to say it. But Paul Skeens against Mexico is going to be a great matchup for him. Keep an eye out for those games. That starts on Friday and Saturday against Brazil and Great Britain, and then the following week will be Mexico and Italy. St. Louis Cardinals announced they're offering a $29 ticket package, which obviously includes a ticket to the game, but includes bottomless sodas, hot dogs, chicken tenders, bratwurst, nachos, fries, popcorn, peanuts, chips, and ice cream. St. Louis Cardinals will not be good this year. They probably will not be good next year as well. So to get butts in the seats is definitely going to be a high priority. This ticket package right here, $29 to get all of that, definitely would have my $29. I'd be going to a lot of games if I was in St. Louis area, even if I wasn't a Cardinal fan. That is a great deal. I know your seats are probably going to be up top, but if nobody's going to be there, you could just move closer, down a little bit further. I think it's a great deal. Definitely would buy a couple tickets here for $29 to a couple games to get that deal. That's a great deal that the Cardinals are having. Heading to the NFL, though, Indianapolis agrees for Anthony Richardson to seek out a trade. I'm not surprised, but I do not think Richardson is the guy anymore. I do not think he could be a starter at other places. He might be given the opportunity, but I do not think it's going to work out for him. I think his time in the league is pretty much done. New York Jets will franchise tag Breece Hall. I don't think that's very surprising to most people. And Detroit trades running back David Montgomery to Houston for a draft pick, 5th rounder there. I think Monty going to Houston is a big pickup for Houston, but I do not know what Detroit's doing here. I think the 1-2 punch of Gibbs and Monty was a very nice 1-2 punch. I actually was kind of mad when Monty left Chicago, especially to go over to Detroit, stay in the conference and stay in the division was not fun to watch, but a great 1-2 punch for the Lions. They got to find somebody to give that 1-2 punch. They could be eyeing somebody in the draft and give him an opportunity. Maybe they're eyeing somebody else when it comes to picking up in a trade this offseason, but they got to find that number 2 because Monty was doing very nice as a number 2 there in Detroit. All right, games of the weekend. We got a lot to talk about. World Baseball Classic, Panama versus Puerto Rico. That's Saturday at 3 p.m. on FS1. All those games for the World Baseball Classic will be on a Fox station, whether it's FS1 or Fox itself. NASCAR is at Phoenix International Raceway this weekend, Sunday, 12:30 p.m. on FS1. Formula One, Qatar Airways Australian Grand Prix, Saturday at 8 p.m. on Apple TV. NHL is at the Wild versus the Avalanche, Sunday at 11 a.m., and that's on TNT or HBO Max. Serie A, we got AC Milan versus Inter Milan, Sunday at 12:45 p.m. on Paramount Plus. And lastly, Bundesliga, Red Bull Leipzig versus Augsburg on Saturday at 6:30 a.m. on ESPN Plus. All right, guys, that'll do it for this episode. Thank you guys for listening. 206 episodes in the books. We appreciate you guys so much for tuning back into the channel. We're going to ramp it back up with just the normal content. Plus, I think I'm going to try to do something for trade deadline, grade the trades, talk about if it's good or bad for the team, how it's going to affect them. So keep an eye out on that. That will most likely be coming out this weekend, though. That will not be a Friday release. It'll probably be everything tuning up from Friday and ending it up on Saturday or Sunday. So keep an eye out on that. We'll talk about the trade deadline for the NHL. But World Baseball Classic is this weekend. College baseball and softball are still going on. So check out those tournaments are still going into there. So there's going to be some good games there. Racing looks really good. So NASCAR, watch out for Tyler Reddick. Plus, you got some derbies here. You got AC Milan, Inter Milan on Paramount Plus, which is going to be great to watch. And Bundesliga has some pretty solid games. Leipzig being one of them. So make sure you guys check out sports this week and have an awesome rest of your week. And we'll see you guys later.